Hola, hola, hola. Hello, 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 my beautiful planner baby divas. Welcome back to the channel. It's your girl here, Daniela, the Planning Diva. Thanks so much for stopping by and spending some time with me. It's been a while. I was just looking at my last book and brew video, and it seems that I last uploaded a book and brew in August. So I skipped September and I skipped October, and we're here with the November book and brew. So let's talk about what we've been reading. Happy Sunday. It is Sunday afternoon, November the 16th, and it has been raining all weekend here in sunny San Diego. Not so sunny this weekend. It was a pretty cozy weekend. We had no plans. We stayed in. I actually decluttered a lot today and yesterday. And after this, I'm gonna head down to the crafty corner and I'm gonna try to declutter some more in my crafty corner, you guys, because it is getting out of hand down there. But before I go do that, I wanted to hop on here for my episode number 3 of my book and brew series. I've actually been kind of consistent with this series, you guys. We're on episode 3. I'm so excited. Unfortunately, I don't have any beer in my fridge, and I don't think I have any wine either. So I made myself a different kind of brew this time around. I made myself a cup of coffee. A little dangerous because it is later in the day. It's not super late. We still have light out, but I can tell the light is going down. It's getting to that sunset golden hour. But I need something cozy to drink right now. And I have it in my gorgeous jack-o'-lantern ghosty spooky season mug. I don't care what anyone says. The pumpkins stay up until after Thanksgiving, and then they come down and the Christmas decorations go up. So it's just a simple cup of coffee here, nothing much to talk about. So let's talk about our books. And in case this is the first book and brews that you're tuning into, this is my little bookish series in which I review the books I've finished recently, the books I'm currently reading, the books I'm hoping to read that are on my TBR list, and any new books I've picked up lately. So let's get into it, you guys. So it's been 3 months, I guess, 3 months since my last book and brew, and I'm happy to report that I finished 3 books in that time. So a book a month, not bad, you guys. And I will be talking about all of the books that I referenced in my last book and brews, so except for the ones that I finished. So if you're interested in checking that out, I will link it in the cards up above. But let's talk about the 3 books I finished in the last 3 months. I talked about all of these in that last episode. So let's start off with Butter. This is the novel Butter by Asako Yuzuki. It is a novel of food and murder. It was a chunky book. She clocked in at, let's see, 452 pages, and I will pop up an actual nice image of this book on the screen right now because I just have the plain old hardcover version that I checked out from my library. Butter. Okay, so this is a novel translated from the Japanese, and I would give it 3 out of 5 stars. So essentially, this is sort of a mix between a true crime story and just a drama. And it has a lot of interesting themes in the undercurrents. There's themes about femininity, there's themes about fat phobia, there's themes about cooking and how that relates to interpersonal relationships. There's a lot of themes about relationships, especially in the context of contemporary Japanese society. Essentially, it follows the story of one Japanese woman journalist who is interested in interviewing a convicted serial killer who is a plump woman who is accused, and I'm pretty sure she's been convicted already, of killing all of her boyfriends for financial reasons. And it is a very famous story in the world. It's a work of fiction, although it's like loosely based on a true story. But in this fiction story, this serial killer woman is fat. And so the novel really explores a lot about both femininity and fat phobia in Japanese society. By the way, if you hear snoring, that is Bugs the pug. He is over there sleeping. Yeah, it's a really interesting book. I had a lot of high hopes for it because I knew loosely about these themes going into reading the book, and generally I tend to like Japanese literature, but unfortunately I feel like it didn't live up to my expectations in terms of the writing. I think this author writes excessively so. There would be pages and pages and pages of description with not much going on. And honestly, I don't mind that very much usually, but I do mind it when the writing isn't beautiful or thought-provoking in terms of, you know, what's being said, or even like the vocabulary and the stylistic choices that the author uses. Yeah, it just missed the mark for me. And especially in the second half of the book, I felt like the author was really spoon feeding us the life lessons that she kind of wanted us to take away from the book. And I don't really like when authors do that. I like authors to kind of let the reader draw their own conclusions and make their own interpretations and do a little bit more of that mental work. I don't particularly like being spoon-fed things. It kind of cheapens like the entire novel a little bit for me. And so the author really was a little bit heavy-handed with that, especially in the second half of the book, and that really left like a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth, if you will. One thing that I kind of enjoyed about this book, Butter, is that it is a book definitely for foodies, for food lovers. My family, and I read this as part of my family book club. My family is a big family of foodies, so I thought that they would enjoy this, and so that's why I recommended it. And there's a lot of scenes and just a conversation dedicated to food, descriptions of food, food ideas, relationships with food, encounters with food, etc., etc., etc. It was a full banquet, a full course, you guys. And it made me appreciate butter more so. And I've definitely started cooking with butter more now that I read this book. So yeah, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, you guys. Ooh, it's getting dark, you guys. Sun's going down. I gotta finish. We're gonna have to power through this. Okay, second book I finished was Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil by John Berendt, and I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, you guys. It knocked it out of the park for me, and I was not expecting that. I picked this book up kind of randomly at my thrift store just because I liked the sound of the title. It kind of like had a nice rhythm and ring to it. It looked cool. It was relatively short, and I had heard of it before. I know I had heard of it before, and I was kind of aware that it had been made into a movie, and so I thought it would be, you know, like a cool story to check out. And I finally decided to read it as part of our Pan Dulce book club with Amy and Max. Hi, Amy, if you're watching. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I went into it with no expectations whatsoever. I had no idea what it was about, and it really, really surprised me and shocked me and was very enjoyable to read. It was a page turner. I read this quite quickly. Yeah, I had a really good time reading this book. And Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil is essentially both a true crime story and also an exploration of old Southern societies, particularly based in Savannah, Georgia. And it follows this like extremely eccentric, colorful cast of characters from all sorts of life paths in this Savannah, old Southern Savannah society. And all the characters are sort of tangentially related to this main through line story of a murder case. And the whole novel is nonfiction. It's being told by this journalist who is living through all of this. But the characters are so eccentric, the plot's so freaking magical that it kind of reads like a fiction piece. You kind of think that this is too crazy to be true, but it is in fact a work of nonfiction. And it is a really interesting, beautiful, elegant sort of exploration of this particular slice of society in this particular point in space and time. And it really made it seem like Savannah, Georgia is just this other world. And it made me really want to visit Savannah, Georgia. And yeah, I really enjoyed this book. 5 out of 5 stars, and I will definitely be checking out the movie soon. The third book I finished was this little book, and this is Fierce Feminine Divinities of Eurasia and Latin America, Baba Yaga, Kali, Pombagira, and Santa Muerte. And this is an academic text, a piece of nonfiction. It's essentially a series of essays in like comparative theology / sociology, and it's a series of essays on these 4 different fierce feminine divinities from these very different religious and social backgrounds. And it explores each one in turn, but also sort of compares and contrasts these divinities. And mainly this book sort of explores how similar these 4 major divinities are, even across, space, time, religion. And the author focuses on these 4 deities specifically because they kind of represent this underworld in our society. These are deities that are sort of connected to demographics that are historically marginalized and oppressed. They sort of represent these kind of like outsider type of energies and people. This book was actually recommended to me by a subscriber who commented on one of my videos where I was talking about La Santa Muerte, who is an important deity to me. So I was recommended this book and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I was really excited about this book, you guys, but I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because I felt like there wasn't as much information about each deity as I had hoped for. There was more of an analysis, I think, of what that deity sort of represented to the demographics that sort of were devotees to that deity, if that makes sense. I felt like this was more a book for people who were already kind of knowledgeable about the different deities, and so were more interested in like this higher level analysis. Whereas although I am more familiar with Santa Muerte, I'm not at all familiar with the other 3. I had never heard of Pombagira before. I had heard of Baba Yaga and Kali, but not of Pombagira. So I wanted a little bit more like 101 introduction to the deities before jumping into this like more technical academic analysis. Yeah, I just felt like I wasn't the audience. And I also felt like the different essays weren't as interconnected as I wanted them to be in terms of it being a book. It felt more like 4 separate articles, and then the author like just brought them all together into this book as a sort of collection. But I wanted a little bit more of like a through line in between the different chapters. Also, again, this goes back to maybe not being the ideal audience for this, but I felt like a little bit overwhelmed by all the technical academic jargon in this. I feel like this is definitely written by an academic, a research scientist who has like a particular language that isn't particularly accessible to someone who has not studied this type of stuff for a number of years. So I did feel like a little bit alienated at times reading this book. But overall, I thought it was a really great concept. I enjoyed reading it, but I'm definitely gonna need something a little bit more introductory for me in order to like truly get more out of it. So that was the last book I finished. It's getting dark, you guys. I gotta hurry. Okay, in terms of books that I am still currently reading, let's see. I have 3 that I had mentioned in my last video, and this is going to be quick, you guys, because I haven't read anything out of these 3 books that I said I was going to continue reading. First off, we have Death Valley in 49, an important chapter of California pioneer history by William Lewis Manley. I have this ugly plain book from the library, so I'll pop a photo of the actual, like a nice image of, you know, like an illustrated cover on the screen. I'm on page 225, which is exactly where I was 3 months ago. This is the book I like to take hiking and camping, and I haven't done a lot of that actually lately, at least not in the sense of that things are calm enough for me to take a book. So unfortunately, I have not continued this at all. I'm about halfway through. I think I will finish it by the end of November because I have a camping trip planned for Thanksgiving. And I think I'm going to be out there 2 days. And so I definitely think I can finish it in those 2 days, or at least get really close to the end and definitely finish it before the end of the year. So definitely want to finish that. The next book that I haven't touched at all, The Collected Poems of Sylvia Plath. I'm right where I was 3 months ago as well. I'm on page 83 of this anthology. It's slow going, you guys. I just need to recommit to it, continue to read a couple of poems every single night. My goal is to get done with this by the end of the year. That is a goal, you guys. And then the last book that I talked about that I'm currently reading, Heretics of Dune by Frank Herbert. This is the 5th book, I think. Yep, 5th book in the Dune series. I only have this one and Chapter House Dune to finish to complete the entire Dune series. Well, the ones that, you know, were originally written by Frank Herbert. And I'm right where I left off, page 12. You guys, I have not made progress in this at all. I actually think I'm gonna restart it because I've completely forgotten like the beginning of this. And this is another one that I really hope to finish this year, you guys. I'm hoping that over the Christmas holidays, New Year holidays, like I'll finish it around that time. I really want to finish it before 2026, just to, you know, like end the year strong, but she's chunky. How big is this book? 540 pages. So it's going to be a challenge, but I really want to finish this by the end of the year. Okay, and then I'm going to talk about 2 books that I mentioned in my last video. These are books that I said I wanted to read in the near future, and I haven't at all gotten to them. This first one is In the Distance by Hernan Diaz. It's a relatively short book, so I have hope that maybe I can finish this before the end of the year. I checked it out of my library, so I do really want to finish it. And this is a story of an immigrant from Sweden who is traveling across the United States, and has a lot to do with that like immigrant experience, I think. It seems really cool. My friend recommended it, and so I really want to read it, but we'll see if we get to it by the end of the year. And then we have Terry Brooks' Sword of Shannara, which is this massive, this is like a 3 books in one. So there's 3 books in here, and I wanted to read the first book at least. Not happening. I'm gonna have to maybe leave this for another time. I'm just gonna set it aside and kind of give up on it. Maybe next summer. Maybe next summer will be the summer where I finish that book. I kind of want to just like set it aside for now and revisit it at a later time. Okay, the last book I want to talk about, because it is getting dark here, you guys. I don't have time for anything else. The last book I want to talk about is this tiny little book, and it is a little like field guide / history of horned lizards. This is by Jane Manister. The Book of Horned Toads, it says. It's only, let's see, 70 pages, you guys, 70 pages. And it's just a book about horned lizards. It's about like their biology, their ecology, but also a little bit about kind of their cultural significance and their history as a species. If you don't know, horned lizards are my favorite animal. I love them so, so much. They're incredibly cute, and I grew up seeing them all around the chaparral, so I have a very special place in my heart for the horned lizards. And I actually want to write a zine about horned lizards, and so I kind of want to read this as like research and also as like I just need to read it. I bought it, I think, earlier this year, and I just haven't gotten around to reading it. So I want to read it as research for the zine I want to write on horned lizards. Oh, and the last book I want to talk about is the book that my family just picked for our next book club pick. It was my sister's turn, and she picked Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishigari. I'll pop a picture of that on the screen right now. It's a very famous book by a very famous author, so I'm very excited to read it. I read his other famous book, Never Let Me Go, and that was pretty good, so I'm excited to read Clara and the Sun. I don't really know what it's about besides that. Okay, I just turned on some lights. It looks so much better. I should have just done that from the beginning instead of like rushing to beat the sun. Okay, anyways, as I was saying, I think Clara and the Sun is about like modern technology and humanity's response to advances in technology. And I think overall it's about just like fundamental questions about like what exactly defines like foundational human emotions and concepts like love and relationships and feelings of connection, things like that. So I'm very interested to check that out. So we have that book. But overall, you guys, if I am able to finish all of these books, plus 2 more, which is Clara and the Sun and the mysterious new book club pick for the Pan Dulce Society book club, then we shall be absolutely set if I'm able to finish like this stack of books plus 2 more. I would call that like quite an accomplishment. We'll see. I feel like this time of the year, things are really starting to slow down and I have more time to read, especially over the holidays. So, you know, we'll see how far I get. Oh my goodness, I totally forgot to talk about 2 books. Well, it's going to be a little out of order, but we'll talk about them. I finished another book. I finished Deep Work by Cal Newport, and I'll pop that picture on the screen. I read this kind of as a combination of an Audible and a physical copy, and I think I already returned the physical copy. But I did finish this book. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 stars. It is a nonfiction book and is essentially a popular science book on the significance and importance of focus and concentration and how that impacts your ability to work productively, effectively, efficiently, creatively. And it's sort of a argument for challenging yourself to work quote unquote deeply, which means with great concentration and great focus. And I feel like it was very much a needed reminder, especially in today's day and age where technology abounds and you have all these distractions flooding your inbox, and you always have meetings that cut into like important work. I think this is more of an issue for me in my previous position, but it was so hard to kind of be able to sit down and crank out sort of these higher level, deeply intellectually challenging projects when you had to break it up into like an hour here, an hour there in between meetings, and you were constantly being bombarded by emails and texts and reminders for such and such and so and so. I have less of an issue with that in my current position because my current position is much more relaxed than my last position. I wish I had read this book earlier. I think it would have really helped shape my work habits and practices, but I definitely moving forward want to prioritize this type of deep work where I'm sinking into a challenging project for, you know, 3 hours at a time with minimal distraction and laser focus. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars though, because I feel like this book was very particular to like a specific type of worker who does a specific type of work. And I wish that the author was able to sort of bring it to a wider demographic. I feel like he was very focused on employees or workers who work sort of these like tech or corporate type of jobs. And it felt like sort of elitist at times. I definitely don't think it was his intention. It just that's kind of how it went. I mean, jobs themselves are sort of elitist in my opinion, but that's a discussion for another day. The last book I want to talk about is The Witcher, The Last Wish by, oh my goodness, let me see if I can pronounce this. Andrzej Sapkowski, Polish author, Andrzej Sapkowski. I'm reading the pronunciation on my iPad here. So this is the famous Witcher series, which if you've seen the series on Netflix or played the video games, these are the books that world is based on. And I will pop a photo of the book cover here. I have totally forgotten to talk about this in my last couple of Book and Brew videos because I actually only listened to this book. I am listening to it on Audible. I only listen to this book when Steven and I are on road trips together. We started listening to it in March when we went on our wedding trip, road trip. And we got like halfway through the book and then we haven't read it since then. So I completely forgot about that I was reading it. I do remember like the story and the plot of it, but I forgot that I was reading it. And then I remembered because a couple of weeks ago when we went to the Phoenix Scene Fest, we continued listening to it and we got like 3/4 of the way through the book. And I think we only have like 2 or 3 hours left of listening to finish the book. And I think we'll be able to do that by the end of the year, especially since we do have a little camping trip planned. I think we can definitely knock that book out by the end of the year. It's a good book to listen to on Audible, especially taking like months in between listens, because it is essentially, the first book is essentially a collection of short stories and it is a fantasy series and it's set in the world of this person called the Witcher, who is a monster hunter. He was born and bred to be a monster hunter, and each short story is his adventure dealing with different monsters. And it's very cool world building. It draws a lot from like Polish folklore and folk tales, fairy tales. So we're able to actually recognize like a couple of these stories in terms of like the original stories that fairy tales like Sleeping Beauty and Snow White were based on. So Steven and I have been reading The Witcher. The one thing about listening to it on audiobook is that the narrator has an extremely thick Scottish accent, I would say. Some sort of European accent, and I can't understand some of it. And for some reason, Steven can understand it a lot better than I can. So we take breaks and then he'll explain to me anything that I missed. But we have been enjoying it thus far. And it also helps that Steven played the video game The Witcher. And so he actually knew of the world and is sort of able to like provide background for me when things get a little confusing. So that helps quite a bit. And those are all the books that I've read, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this Book and Brew. And before I let you guys go, I just quickly wanted to share with you my book bag. This is my Peter Rabbit book bag that I got relatively recently, a couple months ago. And I'm so excited to do a what's in my book bag video soon. And also share with you any updates that I have to my reading journal. You guys, I have this really cool idea that I want to make a zine of all the books that I read in 2025. And what I'm going to do is I'm essentially going to journal about every single book I read this year in my reading journal, and then I will take the pages, copy them, scan them, and then make them into a little zine. And I think that's going to be so fun and so cute, you guys. So stay tuned for reading journal plan with me videos. All right, you guys, I gotta go make dinner, but it was so nice catching up with you, sitting down for our cozy little book chat. Drop a comment down below about books that you have currently been reading, that you currently finished. And with that, I will see you in the next video. So until then, stay safe. God bless you. Have a wonderful rest of your night. And as always, happy planning. Adios.